Thank you all for coming this evening. Beautiful day out there. The leaves are falling a little bit, but I don't think it's due to the change in seasons. I think it's due to the change in temperature. It's quite a bit hotter, but drier than it's been in a while, but we're grateful for all that. We're in John chapter 6 tonight. We're going to talk about the master of the feast. Of course, Jesus' feeding of the 5,000. You know, the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth is filled with signs and wonders. You have lepers that were healed. You have blind that saw, some of them had never seen before, never had sight before. There were cripples that walked. There were demons that were cast out. And there were dead that raised. But I don't think hardly any of these miracles surpasses the miracle of the feeding of masses of people. 5,000 and 6,000, I believe the other time was. So, when Jesus, he did these miracles, his feeding of the 5,000, at a critical time in his ministry. We all think of Jesus as having massive crowds. He was always popular. No, they would have crucified him if that was the case. But many crowds did follow him, listening to him and trying to see what was happening. He had just selected 12 apostles where he prayed all night for God's guidance in that, and then sent them off to heal and to preach to the Jews. He had a lot of opposition from the Pharisees and the Sadducees that were just growing by the day. In John chapter 5, verse 18, it says, "For this cause, therefore, the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only brake the Sabbath, but also called God his own Father, making himself equal with God." There were also the zealots who wanted to make him king, especially after this miracle. His friend, John the Baptist, kinsman, had been beheaded by Herod. And Jesus was really in mourning over that, as many others were. He said of John in John chapter 5, verse 35, "And he was a lamp that burneth and shineth, and you were willing to rejoice for a season in his life." And Mark even records, right before this miracle, that his own kinfolks, his own family, his own people in Nazareth had rejected him, did not believe who he was. And of course, Calvary was drawing closer and closer. So let's look tonight in our mind's eye at what happens right before this miracle. The apostles had just returned from a mission out among the people, and Jesus was exhausted. He did not rest while they were gone. He continued teaching and ministering. It was near the Jewish Passover, and many of the pilgrims were going to Jerusalem to worship God. A lot of people on the roads. And Jesus decides to get away from the crowd to go across the Galilee on a ship and to try to lose some of them. Well, it didn't work. He was trying to really sift them out, I think. Those that were for him and those that weren't. And let's look at this episode in his life and see what we can learn about the Son of God. One thing we learned very quickly is found the first 3 verses, where it says, "Great multitudes came to him." Jesus draws people to God. Still does. Jesus draws people to God. You know, why did they come to the Lord? Some came because of the miracles that he did. John chapter 9 read where he healed the man born blind. And the man says these words, "Since the world began, it has never heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." And that was exactly right. If he was not from God, he couldn't do all these miracles. And that was drawing people to the Lord. And many they came wanting more and more. Matthew 5, verse 6. "Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled." And there were many that hungered and thirsted after righteousness. We were just talking this morning in class the other day was about Judaism back then, and followers of the law, how that many is very superficial with it. If they kept all these commandments, they kept the letter but not the spirit of the law. And Jesus brought both. And that was what was refreshing to many people. And that same gospel the Lord preached back then is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Why? Because men are still in sin. They are still in need of salvation. In Romans 3, verse 23, it says, for all, A-L-L, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Another reason is that men still need to hear the old story. Even though it's 2,000 years old, still they need to hear it. And I know people today say, well, and I've read articles on this recently where people say, well, people are just not interested in religion anymore, Christianity especially. They'd rather be on their phone or in contact with their so-called friends and things like that. But I believe people still want to hear it. Proverbs 22, verse 28, Solomon wrote, remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. And people still need to hear a doctrine, not only of salvation, but the doctrine of the one church. There are people that are so confused out there. They look out there today and they see all these different denominations. And even though many of them say, oh, well, we all say basically the same thing. No, they don't. They sometimes are radically different from one another. If they all preached the same thing and taught the same thing, they wouldn't need to meet in different buildings. They would all come together. And they don't. Matthew 16, verse 18, the Lord said, I say unto thee that thou art Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. But even in Jesus' day, many people were drawn towards Christ, but there were others who were drawn away from Christ by men, false teachers, false doctrine. Matthew 24, verse 5, the Lord prophesied there when Jerusalem would be destroyed. He talked about what happened before that. And he said, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall lead many astray. So false teachers are nothing new. But others were drawn to the Lord not by some mysterious tug of the Holy Spirit, as some people teach that you can only come to the Lord if the Holy Spirit brings you along. No, but the power of this righteous life. John 3, verse 21. He that doeth the truth cometh to light. His works may be manifest that they have been wrought in God. So Jesus draws people to God. It still does. He did back then. But Jesus also is the ultimate giver of compassion and mercy. Matthew 14, verse 14, it says, and he came forth and saw a great multitude and had compassion on them and healed their sick. Think of all these people who had walked in John chapter 6, walked all the way from the other side of the Galilee, Sea of Galilee, around where Jesus was, and from the cities to hear him. They were tired and they were hungry, and the Lord had compassion on them. In Matthew chapter 9, another time when something like this occurred, it says, verse 36, but when he saw the multitudes, he had compassion. He was moved with compassion for them because they were distressed and scattered as sheep not having a shepherd. That's one thing that should set the Christian apart from the world, is compassion. And I don't mean just compassion for someone that's down their luck or needs help or something like that. I mean compassion on those who are not only that, but are spiritually deprived too. Our nation, people are starving to death because they don't have the gospel. They are spiritually starving. I've read it over in India, for example. Now, there's other places like this too. People walk for miles just to hear the gospel preached. I wish it was that way here. They just drive for miles, but they don't. But still, people need that. They're spiritually dehydrated or malnourished, whatever you want to call it. Millions of people in the United States are walling around in ignorance. religious ignorance, even though we proclaim we are so knowledgeable people and smart and well-educated and things like that. They're wallowing around in immorality and wickedness. It's amazing how much of that there is. How about our friends and neighbors who will be eternally lost on the day of judgment? We like to wake up in paradise, like Lazarus did, and look over and see the rich man over there on the other side in torments. No one would want that. Jude chapter 22 and 23 says, some had mercy who were in doubt, and some saved, snatching them out of the fire. And on some had mercy with fear, hating even the garments spotted by the flesh. That should be our attitude. To try to draw men to Christ, to the gospel. Luke 19, verse 41. The Lord, on his last journey to Jerusalem, said, when he drew nigh, he saw the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known in this day, even thou, the things which belong unto peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. But in this account, Jesus is also a tester of men. Look, if you would, over in John 6, verse 5. It says, when Jesus lifted up his eyes and saw the great company come toward him, he said to Philip, whence shall we buy bread that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take a little. Now, Jesus, when he saw these people, he knew what he would do. No one had to convince him that these people need to be fed. These people were tired, they traveled a long way, and they need to be spiritually fed as well. And Luke 9, verse 11 says, and he spake to them of the kingdom of God. But now he tests Philip. Philip was a very practical, kind of bottom line type guy. And he says unto him, and he tells the other apostles, he says, give ye them to eat. You give them something to eat. Now, after he says that, probably an hour or so might have passed. When Philip finally says, verse 7, 200 penny worth, I think some versions say denarii, worth of bread is not sufficient for them. A denarii was a day's wages. And that would be approximately $10,000. He said $10,000 wouldn't feed this crowd. And they just kind of gave up. Said, well, it's out of our hands. We can't do this. But Jesus knew it was not physically possible. He knew that. I reminded what the angel Gabriel said to Mary in Luke 1 verse 37. When she said, how can this be? Well, to give birth to a child. And the angel says, for no word from God shall be void of power. He knew that Philip was this practical guy. And he was going to test him to see, do you really believe, Philip? It was the same man who, on the last night of the Lord's life, before he was arrested, he spoke up and said, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. He was this practical guy. Well, have you thought about it? How does Jesus test our faith? This world is a time of testing, proving, and growing. Maybe it's when we ask ourselves, when we know someone, a neighbor or a friend or something, and we want to invite them to services or Bible study or study the Bible with them alone, whatever, and we think, well, they wouldn't be interested in this. They wouldn't be interested in the Bible. Maybe the Lord is testing us. Will we really believe what the Great Commission says? Or we say, well, I just can't, he or she wouldn't be interested. Or what about when we say to ourselves, I'm just too tired to go to Bible study on Wednesday night. I'm just too tired. Or like I remember a friend of mine said one time when we were talking about the Christian life and how you're supposed to live. He says, you know, nobody can live like that. Nobody can live like that. Just well, that's a testing. The Lord is saying, will you believe what I say or not in the Bible? Or someone says, you know, the church can't do that. It costs too much. All these different things are a test if we're going to do it or not. And Christianity, folks, is often going beyond the probable and the practical to the possible by faith in the promise of God. Philippians 3, verse 13, 14. Paul said, brethren, I count not myself yet to have laid hold, but one thing I do, forgetting the things which are behind and stretching forward to the things which are before, I press on toward the goal and to the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Paul knew he could do that. He knew he could do that. Another point is found here in verse 8 and 9. And one of the other disciples, Andrew, brother Peter, says unto him, there's a lad here which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. Well, what are they among so many? Now, Andrew knew what the Lord could do, but he didn't know how he would do it. Here this boy, now 5 loaves was not a big loaf of bread. 5 loaves was, I've read one commentary said it was something like the size of a soda cracker, which is about the size of a dime, the ones I've seen. And the fish were no big fillet. They were the size of a sardine. So you've got 5, what was it there, 5 soda crackers, 2 sardines. I remember when I was a child, this before I was even in grade school, elementary, we had a Bible class, and the sister had gone to the bakery and had a Mrs. Bear's bread. That was big, like Wonder Bread or something that's right here, but anyway. And they used to give everybody these little samples of loaves, little loaves about that big. And they were wrapped up, you know. She got several of those and handed everybody, gave one in class. And talking about this miracle. And I remember I wolfed mine down. And I said, asked her teacher, can I have another one? Still a healthy appetite, even though I was about 4 or 5 years old. Okay, so here we've got 5 to maybe, it says 5,000 men. It may have been 10,000 people. We don't know. He had to feed that many. But Andrew believed in the Lord. John 1 verse 41, he findeth his own brother Simon, Andrew did, and said unto him, we have found the Messiah. That's before the Lord had done any miracles. We have found the Messiah. Jesus was capable of accomplishing anything. Matthew 4 verse 3. And the tempter came to him and said unto him, if thou art the Son of God, command that these stones become bread. He could have done that, but it'd been against the will of God if he did. Matthew 26 verse 53, there in the garden when he was about to be arrested. He said, or thinkest thou that I cannot beseech my Father, and he shall even now send me more than 12 legions of angels? So he could have said he could have fed not 5,000, but 50,000, 5 million people. He could have fed them all in an instant. Rather, we should be like Andrew. And they say, you know, Lord, I've never done that before. I've never done that before, but I'll try. Or, Lord, how can I get the opportunity to study the Bible with my friend? Give me that opportunity. Or, Lord, I know the church can do this work rather than, well, we can't afford it or something like that. Or, Lord, I want to give more to your work in my community, and how can I do it? We should allow the Lord to supply the how. Luke 6 verse 38. The Lord said, and this isn't just talking about contribution. He said, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken together, running over shall they give into your bosom. But Jesus is also a multiplier. Here in verse 10, of John 6, Jesus said, make the men sit down. And there was much grass in that place, so they sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, giving thanks, he distributed disciples to them that were set down, likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, they said to the disciples, gather up the fragments that remained, that nothing be lost. Therefore they gathered them together and filled 12 baskets with fragments of the 5 barley loaves, which remained over and above unto them that had eaten. Now, what does the Lord do here? First thing, he has people organized. In Mark chapter 6, when he feeds his account of this feeding, he says, and he commanded them that all should sit down by companies upon the green grass, and they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by fifties. He wanted this all to be done orderly, and everyone to see what was taking place. And notice what else he does. He says there, in verse 11, he gave thanks. Remind me what Matthew 6, verse 11, where the Beatitudes says, give us this day our daily bread. James 1, verse 17, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with which could be no variation, neither shadow that is cast by turning. Now, my question is, how did this miracle occur? How did this happen? I don't know, except what the scriptures say. It just happened. He prayed, and that food was multiplied. I've often wondered about that. I don't know. I think we get an idea. Go to the Old Testament, over the book of 1 Kings, chapter 17. But had a great famine, ran out of food and everything, and so Elijah was told by the Lord to go to the widow of Zarephath, the Gentile. And she came and found her outside her village, gathering sticks up to make a meal, her last meal for her son and I, and then they would die because they had no more food. She says, all we've got is a little meal and a little oil. And he tells her, he says, you go back and you fix me some meat. She believes him and does, and she finds that her meal and her oil this is olive oil probably, just gets so big, it just multiplies. 1 Kings 17, verse 14. He tells her, he says, for thus saith Jehovah, the God of Israel, the jar of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail until the day Jehovah sendeth rain upon the earth. I don't know how that long, I'd have to look at that again, how long that was. But that is similar to what the Lord did, not as dramatic, but a miracle as well. But Jesus provided them, notice, not just what they needed, but more than they actually needed. There was an excess, and that's the way God does. Ephesians 3, verse 20, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to his power that worketh in us. Today people look at New Testament Christianity, they look at the church, and they say, well, you folks are just kind of backward. You're insignificant. You're irrelevant. You're kind of legalistic. All this other whatever term they want to throw out there. You're small. You're to mean thing. They forget that God works through the weak, the lowly, and that He will perform His will. Romans 1:16. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for the power of God is salvation for those who believe, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. Matthew 17, verse 20. Jesus said, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. Paul's day, he and Barnabas went out, actually, I believe it was Barnabas, yeah. Acts 17, verse 6, and they were accused of turning the world upside down. And that's what they did. Acts 13, when Paul was in Antioch, Pisidia, the synagogue, he said, verse 41, he said, behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish, for I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe if one declared it unto you. Brethren, we need to believe what God said. People were amazed by this miracle. And some people wanted to make him king right then. These verses later, you read in chapter 6. Because think about it, a king, a military leader especially, if you could produce unlimited amounts of food, then, you know, as the old saying goes, an army moves on its stomach, travels on its stomach. You could do a lot of things. Anyway, some of them made him realize, though, his importance through this. John 6, verse 51, Jesus said, I am the living bread which came down out of heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. Yea, and the bread which I have given is my flesh for the life of the world. And I believe his disciples may have realized who he was. Andrew and Philip, I believe they did. They saw, especially Philip, they saw what was going on. My friends, do we understand the importance of Jesus Christ? The importance of obeying him, becoming a child of God, and remaining faithful to him. And he will give us eternal life. Maybe someone here this morning, I believe we're all Christians here tonight. Maybe there's someone that listening to this that has not obeyed the gospel, has not believed in Jesus. John 8, verse 24, not repented of their sins, Acts 17, verse 30, not confessed him before men, Romans 9 and 10, Romans 10, 9 and 10, or been baptized for remission of the sins, Acts 2, verse 30. Why not do that tonight? Maybe you have, and you have not obeyed the Lord as you should. Why not do it tonight? If this is your need, please come as we stand and sing.